Welcome back. Let's continue with our lesson. We're looking at the last three concepts of our lesson. Now we focus on dividing decimal fractions. Let's look at an example, or before that, let's look at a preview explanation. This says, convert decimals to common fractions. That's the first thing we want to do. Then divide common fractions, but remember to convert back to decimal fractions as your question is given as a decimal. Let's move. Example 1. Calculate 0.32 divided by 4. Let's look at a solution. Remember, we said we are going to convert to a common fraction first. So this 0.32 divided by 4 is actually 32 hundredths divided by 4 over 1, or out of 1. And then we know we can't actually divide fractions, so we introduce the tip and times method. Let's see. This would be 32 hundredths multiply a quarter. Then we know numerators multiply numerators, so it's 32 multiplied by 1, which gives you 32. We'll write it here. This would be 32. And then we have 100 multiplied by 4, which gives you 400. And when you simplify this, it will give you 8 hundredths. Remember, we said we must definitely convert back to decimals. And your answer would be 0.08. Here's the next example. It reads, calculate 0.45 divided by 0.09. So we said we must convert each decimal into a common fraction. So you can see this is 45 hundredths. So it's actually equals to 45 out of 100. We're dividing by, this one is actually 9 hundredths. So we will have 9 out of 100. And remember, we can't actually divide, so we introduce tip and times. So this would be equals to 45 hundredths multiplied by 100 out of 9. And simply, we're going to allow these hundredths to divide because they give a 1. Then we then say this is actually 45 out of 9, which will give you 45 out of 9 is going to give you a 5. Does it make sense? Yes. So your answer is a 5. And let's move to the next slide. We are looking at the next concept. We calculate squares and cubes of decimals. Let's look at an example. Just before that, squaring or cubing a decimal fraction is done exactly the same way as squaring or cubing a whole number. We multiply the decimal fractions by itself once if it's squaring, or twice if it's cubing. Let's look at examples. We have 0.4 squared. This squared means multiply a number by itself. So in all reality, this is going to be, let's look at the solution. 0.4 squared is 0.4 times 0.4. Remember what we said with multiplying decimals. We count the number of decimals, and you can see we're going to have how many decimals here? Correct, 2 decimals. So we're going to say 4 multiplied by 4, which gives us 16. And we definitely are going to have our answer as 0.16, which gives us those 2 decimal places we were talking about. Let's look at the next example. Calculate 0.3 cubed. And cubed means a number multiplying by itself 3 times. And let's check how this goes. Let's look at a solution. We're going to say this is 0.3 times 0.3 times 0.3 which then means we have 0.3 cubed. Now we're going to count how many decimals. So it's 1, 2, 3 decimals that we are going to have. Now let's multiply. We say 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3. So 3 by 3 will give you 9. And then we say 9 multiplied by 3 will give you a 27. I'm writing it here because for my answer, I know I must have how many decimals? 3 decimals. So it means I must introduce a 0 here, bring back our comma, and then we write the 0 there. So our answer would be 0.027. Make sense? Perfect. Let's move to the next concept, which is the last concept. Calculate the square roots and cube roots of decimal fractions. And let's see. Calculate the square root of 0.64. Easy way out here would be to simply convert this into a common fraction, the 0.64 into a common fraction, and then you find the square root of the numerator, then find the square root of the denominator. So you can see this is actually 64 hundredths. Let's look at a solution. Square root 0.64 is equivalent to 64 hundredths, so it's the square root of 64 hundredths, equals to square root 64 over square root 100. What square root 64 should give you 8, square root 100 should give you 10, and your answer here should be 8 over 10, or out of 10. Remember, we are going to convert back to decimals. This is 8 tenths, so your answer should be 0.8. Let's look at the next example. Next example, we have the cube root of 0.027. So, remember what we said? Convert this first. So this is going to be equals to the cube root of, this is 27 thousandths. So it's 27 out of 1,000, or 27 thousandths. Then we say we want the cube root of 27 out of the cube root of 1,000. And this will give you, cube root of 27 is 3, cube root of 1,000 is 10, and your final answer must be a decimal. So you have 3 tens here. Your answer is going to be 0.3. Does it make sense? We've come to the end of our lesson. Till we meet next time, it's goodbye from me.